Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Coming to you from Riprocks in Denton, Texas, it's the Dallas Business Journal's newest coffee boy, Paul Wedding. With me, as always, is Leopold Knopp. And this week we are reviewing Sci-Fi's latest original movie, Warcraft.
Okay, so there's this mystic fantasy realm called Middle-earth. Okay, so there's this mystic fantasy realm called Azeroth, and there are humans on it, and they just kind of live there, farming and mining for gold. And then there are these orcs, and they're from another planet, but that planet is all fucked up, and so they come through this magical portal to Azeroth, and they're like, hey, this is our planet now. And it's just 3 hours of orcs and humans murdering each other. And that's it. That's the entire movie. There isn't even any dialogue.
But I thought the opening scene was pretty cool.
That was the scene when the orc and the human were about to fight.
Yeah.
And then it just cut away.
The little action you see, I'll admit, it can occasionally be cool, but it never lasts very long. It's usually cut away from.
It's window dressing.
Yeah. It's kind of like Godzilla. It's very similar to that.
Lore is not inherently boring. Blizzard has done a great job of telling lore in entertaining ways. Their cinematics are amazing. This movie told lore very poorly.
The problem is, a lot of the time, they really depend on you actually caring about these characters. In the middle of fights, a character's son dies, you're just supposed to think, oh god, those two have a really strong relationship, and I should feel empathy for the father character.
Yeah, even though that relationship is never shown, his entire motivation is to protect his son, which is why he let him join the army! There's a lot of implicit relationships in this movie.
Yeah.
Like Anduin and Khadgar, they meet each other in one scene, and then in the next they have this long-standing jock-nerd banter. Lothar and Garona Half-Orcan have this fucking weird romance.
They're in love. They've known each other for about 12 hours.
Lothar and Medivh keep talking about how, oh, they're old friends, and you don't see any of that relationship. On a scene-to-scene level, you're supposed to have establishing shots, you're supposed to have, like, a beginning and a middle and an end. It's just a barrage of middle. A lot of scenes, they cut away to something that didn't have an establishing shot. So you're cutting away from, like, a close-up of Garona saying something to a close-up of Dura, but he's half a mile away. Like,
You don't know where you are.
this is not the same conversation. You don't know anything about where you are in any given scene. You don't know. It's bewildering. Understanding the plot of this movie is like doing Harry Potter trivia when you've only read Goblet of Fire. It's impossible.
But I don't think there was a single person properly cast in this movie. Medivh is played by Ben Foster, a great actor, but he should not have been playing this role. He's too young. He looks like a Comic-Con geek. Most of these characters look like they were pulled out of Comic-Con or a LARPing session, and they brought their own costumes. They don't fit into the movie. They don't look real. They look ridiculous.
They don't interact with the movie at all.
And the humans look out of place. The humans are the most out of place thing in this movie to me, because they constantly look like they're in front of a green screen. Which of course they are.
I've seen the behind-the-scenes stuff, and the armor is really there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like it's really there. It looks like it's lit from a different light source.
The king, probably my least favorite character in the entire movie, his armor looked exactly like you said, lit from a different light source. He had this ridiculous helmet. Out of all the actors, he was the worst one by far. He did not have the presence of a king. I can't remember a single line from him.
That's Dominic Cooper.
Is that really Dominic? The main actor I'd never heard of.
Travis Fimmel.
Yeah, he was completely unremarkable.
in Vikings. His character doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Duracell, he was supposed to be he was supposed to be important, and then he never actually does anything.
The one that stuck out to me was Paula Pack,
Yeah, she was awful.
who she can't stand still without doing something wrong. It was like Olivia Munn in X-Men, where she's just standing in the background, and it sticks out to me as like she's standing wrong. her character was also very poorly written. Really, there's a common denominator here.
A poor script, poor editing.
Poor direction. Poor visual effects.
I think the most clear example of this, are they night elves or blood elves? I can't fucking remember. The high elves in this movie, they've got these purple eyes and they literally look like they were photoshopped on, which I'm sure it was something like that. They look like they're in front of their face. It's laughably bad. The dwarves don't fit into the movie at all. They look ridiculous.
Yeah, there's like one dwarf and he looks like the CGI horse.
Humans don't mesh into it at all. You know, they meshed in Lord of the Rings, it looked great. In this movie, it just doesn't work. It should have been a CGI movie. They should have done practical effects.
Lord of the Rings, they went to a Brazilian soccer game and just said, hey, we need extras. And then they put everybody in this great individualized makeup, and that's how they made the orcs for Lord of the Rings, and it looked great. In the Hobbit movies, it was all motion capture CGI, and it looked awful. This is all motion capture CGI, and it looks awful. It looks worse than the Hulk in Marvel movies. In Lord of the Rings movies, Gollum was the flagship for this technology, and he looked spectacular.
14 years ago, Gollum still looks better.
Even when they have like big tendrils of magic, Lord of the Rings, it looked a lot better. Did this seem like Moon to you at all?
No.
Did you see any kind of directorial flair?
No, this didn't feel like any of its previous.
What happened here, I think, was Universal had this great property rights. It's going to be a huge movie, and it is doing very well abroad. And they wanted to make it good, so they went out and they hired a guy who they know could make movies. Duncan Jones comes in and just puts no effort into the movie. He just does a by-the-numbers blockbuster, doesn't do anything to make it good because he doesn't care about it. It completely defeats the purpose of going out and getting a good director in the first place. You know, Brett Ratner could have made this movie very easily. John M. Chu could have made this movie. It wouldn't have been any different. They're doing that with basically all blockbusters now. You know, every Star Wars movie has this spectacular director lined up. DC is making a really big deal about the directors they go out and get. This completely undermines that whole ideology.
Last call, Leo, how many beers would you need to see this movie again?
A lot.
I don't think there's any amount of alcohol that would make me want to sit through this movie again.
I would need to be blackout drunk. How many beers would you give Duncan Jones?
None.
None.
Yeah.
He did a terrible job here, and I think he doesn't give a shit.
Paul Wedding, Leopold Knopp, Riprocks, Warcraft. Cheers.